Welcome to this video in which we are going to do a little exercise on Nmap. So first of all, let's try to understand what IP address our machine has. So to do this, we simply need to type ifconfig. And we can see that our IP address is 192.168.150.124 and our subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. So this means that it is a /24. So now that we know our IP address and our subnet mask, we can see which hosts are up. And to do this, one way is to launch an Nmap scan on all of our subnet, even though this is not the most effective way, because you have a specific flag in Nmap that simply targets all of the hosts online in your network without launching an Nmap scan. But in this case, we will simply launch an Nmap scan to show you also the ports open for those specific hosts that are up. So to do this, you need to launch the command nmap and then the subnet mask, which in our case is 192.168.150.0, and then you put a /24. Of course, if you have a /24. And we can see that we have three hosts up. The first one is the host with the IP address 150.1. The second one is the IP address 124, which is our host. And then we have 129. We also have the open ports for each host online. We can also see that we have three categories for each scan. We have port, state, and service. So the port is the port that has been found thanks to the Nmap scan. The state can be open, closed, or filtered. And filtered means that the Nmap software couldn't understand whether it is open or closed because of the firewall. And service points to the service that is up for that specific port. So the port 22 hosts the service SSH, the port 80 the service HTTP, and the port 443 hosts the service HTTPS. So let's try to target a specific IP address, in this case the .1, and we can see that the result is the same of what we got before. So we have three ports opened, 22, 80, and 443. We can also target multiple IP addresses. To do this, you need to put one IP address and then a space and then another IP address and then another IP address, and you continue with all the IP addresses that you have in list. In this case, we will just target two IP addresses, the .1 and the .129. So we had always the same result of before. The .1 has three ports open and the .129 has just the port 22 open, which is the SSH service. We can also target a range of IP addresses. To target a range of IP addresses, you need to put a dash from this IP address to the IP address 192.168.150.130. In fact, we can see that we have three results. So we have the IP address .1, the IP address 124, which is our host, and the IP address 129. These are all the hosts available in our subnet. So let's begin to use the Nmap flags. By default, Nmap targets the first 1000 ports available on each host. If you want to target all the other ports available, you can put this flag, which is -p, which stands for ports, and then another dash. The scan time will be longer, of course, but you will also have a much clearer vision of all the ports available for those hosts. Another important flag of Nmap is -SV, which stands for service version. And as you can imagine, this tells us the version of the service that are up for each port. Then we have the flag O, which stands for operating systems. This tells us the operating system of the machine. And this needs the root privileges. As you can see, this is a Linux machine. The flag A in Nmap enables aggressive scanning. It activates several advanced features that are useful for a comprehensive scan, but it can also be more noisy and easily detectable by IDS, intrusion detection system. Specifically, the flag A enables the operating system detection, so the flag O. It also enables the version detection, so the flag SV, and also the script scanning, the -SC, and traceroute. So I want to spend just a few seconds on the script scanning, but we will focus on this later on in this video. Nmap has a scripting engine, and the scripting engine is called NSE, Nmap Scripting Engine. And it has a lot of scripting, and based on what you need to do with the host that you are targeting, you can use a scripting instead of another one. About the NSA, the Nmap Scripting Engine, we can see that a scripting has actually been performed, so we have more information. These things that you see here are the SSH host keys that have been found on the host. And this is possible thanks to a scripting that it is inside the Nmap scripting engine. So another important flag of Nmap is the SS, which stands for scan scene. So in order to explain to you guys what a scene scan is, I need to explain very quickly, for those who don't know already, the three-way handshake. So the three-way handshake is the process used by the TCP to establish a reliable connection between a client and the server. It's called three-way because it involves 3 steps to set up the connection. So first of all, we have the SYN, which stands for synchronize, in which the client wants to connect to the server. So it sends a SYN packet to the server to request a connection. Then we have the SYN-ACK, which stands for synchronize acknowledge, in which the server receives the SYN packet, it replies with a SYN-ACK packet, which means like, I have your SYN, here's my SYN. And then we have the ACK, acknowledge, in which the client receives the SYN-ACK and then he sends an ACK packet back to the server, acknowledging the server's SYN. So at this point the connection is established and both sides can start sending data. However, in a SYN scan, Nmap never completes the handshake. Instead, if the port is open, the target responds with a SYN-ACK, and Nmap immediately sends an RST packet, which stands for reset, to avoid completing the connection. And Nmap does this because if the connection is fully established, then there is more noise on the firewall, and the firewall may notice that we are performing an Nmap scan on the target. If the port is closed, the target responds with an RST. If the port is filtered, there might be no response or an ICMP unreachable message. And this is why we use the SS flag, because it's very stealthy. So it's less likely to be logged by the target system. And it's also fast and effective for identifying open ports without making full connection. So the next one is SN, which stands for scan no. Do you remember at the beginning of the video I told you that I wanted to see which hosts were up in our subnet, and to do that I told you that there were multiple ways, but the way I used was simply launching an Nmap scan on all of our subnet. So there is a better way to see which hosts are up without performing an Nmap scan on their ports. And this way is using the flag SN, which stands in fact for scan none. So we are simply seeing the IP addresses of the machines that are up inside our network. In fact, we can see again that we only have 3 IP addresses, which are the ones that we have discovered before. The next one is the flag ON, which stands for output normal. In many cases, it's very helpful to have this scan saved inside a file so that we can giving this file to some colleague or to our boss, or to also go back to our scan maybe in another time. So in order to save the results in a file, you need to put the flag, then you need to put the file in which you want to save the scan, and then the IP addresses that you are targeting. The scan has been completed, and just to be sure, let's see if the scan has been saved inside that file. We can see that the file results.txt exists, and if we do a cat, we can print what's inside that file. So as I was telling you before, guys, we have a very powerful tool inside Nmap, which is the Nmap scripting engine. So we can access many scriptings inside Nmap, and the script that we access depends on what we need to do on the target. In this case, I need information about the scripting, which are about the HTTP protocol. So in order to access these scriptings, what I need to do is launching the command nmap and then --script -help and then the protocol that I want to target. In this case, HTTP. So as you can see, we have a lot of scripting inside the NSA, and we can choose all the ones that we want, but for this demonstration I will just use one, and for example we can target this one. Each script targets a specific vulnerability for that protocol, in this case HTTP. So we just need to write nmap -script and then the scripting name that we have copied before, and then of course the target. And this is the result. In this case, the script hasn't found anything about HTTP on the target.